Lego are introducing even more 3D parts into the roster of like millions of Lego parts that already currently exist, and a lot of people aren't talking about a very specific pattern that I think Lego could use on so many different elements, both pre-existing and new ones to come out in the next couple of years. So today we're going to be talking about 3D printed Lego. Recently, I 3D printed the basketball hoop for one of the new Lego Night collabs rather than paying £35 for an element I'm probably never going to use again. And I've also recently come into contact with a file. I bought this file for a couple of quid of a slightly larger Lego duck. It works the exact same as the 3D printed duck. The biggest difference is the price I paid for it, because this duck, well, this duck was very rare and very hard to get your hands on in the first place, only given away to a select few in 2022, and the asking price for it has sharply risen from sort of 200, 300, 400 pound to now it's going for as much, or at least people are asking for 650 pounds. None of them have been bought over like 200-ish pounds, and of that, I can only find record of 4 of these ducks selling in the last 3 years. So most people probably don't care about getting their hands on an original Lego duck. I mean, it's not exactly an element you can use in a Star Wars mock, for instance. But like I said, the model that I've got and 3D printed is slightly larger than Lego's. You can see the size comparison here. It's ever so slightly bigger. It still functions the exact same and means that we can take a look how this Lego piece is able to do things that most Lego sets around this size can only dream of. Stay tuned, because not only will we be speaking about the future of 3D printed Lego and taking a look at some of the new sets that feature 3D printed elements, but also giving our UCS Slave 1 the perfect 3D printed elements that I think we could be expecting to see in UCS Star Wars sets within, I would say, the next 5 years, but Lego have taken 10 years and are still trying to get paper bags into sets. So maybe 15 years will be more generous. Either way, I hope it happens sooner rather than later. If any of you have stuck around on the channel for quite a while now, you've probably seen the odd set that has a 3D printed modified Lego brick or some sort of 3D printed element within it, because I do think that 3D printing and Lego go hand in hand, and if Lego do want to keep the toy market in the tight grip hold that they do, which, let's be honest, they probably do, Lego are up there competing with Hasbro and Mattel, both of which have tried to launch a brick built line, and well, Mattel thought it would give it another crack. So we'll see how that pans out. But I do think that Lego really need to hone in on the 3D printed elements and the 3D printed world in general. They do have an exclusive pattern for bricks that are mixes of Lego elements and 3D printed elements. And this isn't just ABS and 3D printed. This is specifically Lego elements that have a 3D printing on top, which is what stops me from 3D printing on actual Lego bricks and then selling that on to any of you, for instance, in the store. All the bricks that I have are designed by myself and also fully 3D printed with no use of any sort of Lego brick, be it the design or otherwise. But here we have a duck that was given away in 2022. I don't really know how this was given away. So if any of you, there are so many different stories on Google. If any of you know a truth, let us know in the comments, and I would love to learn more about these. But when you roll these along the desk, the mouth opens and then doesn't close back, because this isn't the official Lego one. This is the 3D printed one here. And what's meant to happen is as the wheel spins, you're gonna need a much closer look at that, but you can kind of see what's happening. As the wheel spins, the mouth opens and closes, and because this isn't Lego, I will be more than happy to pop off the head of the duck and show you exactly how this works. So first off, inside the head of the duck, we have this little stick sticking up just past the head, and that is what's going to almost control our turning mechanism, because the front wheel completely loose, so it spins a lot easier than the back wheel does, and the back wheel has the center of it, you might notice it's going left, right, and also up and down as it spins around. It isn't just a tube like the front wheel. It's got a little mechanism inside which moves this bar up and down in the neck of the duck. You might just be able to see it in there. It's moving up and down. There you go. Oh, it's popped up again. And what that does is raises and lowers the neck of the duck, I guess, that little tube, so that the duck appears to be opening and closing its mouth as it's rolled along. Now, as for why it's not working with my desk mat, I don't know. I don't think there's enough grip between the duck and the material of the mat. It's a nice flimsy mat that usually works with rubber wheels. Maybe underneath. Oh, underneath, it does it better. The wheels do go on the underside. So my desk is probably a bit too smooth. It kind of starts and then doesn't. Oh, look, it's working. It's working. Okay, it's kind of working. You can see where the wheel is spinning. This is what's meant to happen with a duck. It's meant to be quacking as it goes on by. And the Lego one is much smaller, so it works a bit better with minifigures. For instance, here is our Luke Skywalker, and Luke can in fact hold. I wonder if Luke can hold the bigger one. I think this is pushing it in terms of the limit of the humor in the minifigure hands, but Luke can hold both versions of these ducks and I guess could walk them along. However, this isn't the only Lego 3D printed element, because one of the new sets coming out October 1st, I think some point in October, is a Lego Christmas train. There we go, the Holiday Express train for £109.99, and comes with the first 3D printed Lego element to be publicly made available in a Lego set. By the way, this is set number 10361. If you would like to find that yourself, it's the easiest way of Googling for Lego sets, as long as you add Lego in the search, because sometimes these numbers relate to completely different topics. But this train looks very nice. It's not the only miniature included in the set, though the others are purely brick built. We get a digger, a helicopter, and I'm just noticing the ramp on the main image doesn't fit flush with, I guess it's to line it up to the tracks, because the slope is annoyingly one plate off the ground. But this train comes with what seems to be 3 elements attached. There's a few more points of connection, but we get the micro pin for the steam at the top. There must be some sort of central stud in the back that goes in the middle of a 2x2 roof piece, and there's a stud on the front of the train. The wheels seem to spin as trains do, and then the steam will go up and down, which is a nice effect and very, very similar to the movement of the duck. It will be done the same way, no doubt, with a bar going from maybe the front wheel this time, so the difference will be ever so slightly, but still work out the same as the duck. And then there's also a bar on the back, which I have to assume will let minifigures hold this. And the fact that they've only gone with the train, not done the digger or the helicopter or even the boat in the same style, is interesting, but I think it's better than trying to cram 4 of these in one set. This almost feels very similar to the space air tanks and helmet in the light green included in the tree, which is a nice touch, much more expensive set than this one, but it might make me want to pick it up, or at the very least try and find someone who will design the model for me. I should really stop dropping things on this channel. It's become a thing recently, but whilst I was digging around, taking a little look at the Lego ducks, I found there were a few more. You've seen the thumbnail, you know there are a few more 3D printed items, one of which I don't have, but one of which I have here in the form of this Lego pogo stick that actually works. This blew my mind and is completely different to both the duck and the train we'll get looking at, so we've got to take a look at this. Once again, I hear a few of you asking what's so special about this pogo stick, and this one's got me really excited because not only does it spring, like you can see that it's folding in at the bottom, and it uses a combination of a rod that sticks up the middle. I'm not sure if you're going to be able to see this, but there is a rod that goes up the middle, very similar to the neck of the duck, and then it springs back with this coil that has been 3D printed around that same pole so that it holds it straight and it doesn't bend and snap, I suppose. And this has just really interested me because it's another piece that can be used as some sort of suspension. You know, Lego use metal coils in a lot of their Technic sets. Now, thanks to 3D printing, they no longer need to pay for the metal coils and try to get some springs around. I don't know why I'm calling them coils, and can just 3D print one element, again, much cheaper. I mean, Lego are buying springs in mass, so it's not working out probably too much cheaper for them to get all these 3D printers running, but they can now hide the springs inside of Lego bricks. Couldn't have done with the metal springs. Wonder what the life is on 3D printed elements, and also design them exactly how they want, because you've seen on the channel, if a Lego brick doesn't exist, I'll just simply design my own, and my degree's in maths, not in, I guess that helps with architecture and designing things on a studio, but I don't have an architecture degree or a design degree by any means. Most of my maths degree was focused on finance and coding, which is how I was able to bypass the whole calibration on the 3D printer setup. So in 2025, we have the 3D printed train. Jump back to 2022 for the duck. And even in 2020, we have this lovely 3D printed Lego element, and this was given out in a book which has been gone over so many times. I mean, everyone part of LAN that has taken a look at the book back when you had to spend like $250 on the fundraiser for this. Actually, let's not skip over that, because Lego is expensive, and Lego, a company that makes it's the biggest toy company in the world. It's the largest tire manufacturer, and I think that says it all for a toy company that doesn't do too many cars. It does quite a few, but they tend to do more motorbikes nowadays. And they did a crowdfunder for a book about introducing Lego to adults. And it's kind of weird, because as you go through it decade by decade, they try to market a lot of sets as if they were selling them to adults at the time, even though they did the whole welcome adults to Lego stores after lockdown ended, because they realized, you know, adults were the ones paying the most money, and a lot of stores didn't allow them to take part in any of the events. So there's that big problem, which is a story for another time. Honestly, I probably will end up doing a video just on that eventually, once I've got time between all these Lego releases. But this pogo stick was given away to, I think, only the first 500 supporters. The actual book itself, when it come to reprint, when it was released to the public for 30 quid, and it's now selling for 20 quid with the sales. That was last year. It got re-released, so anyone that spent $250 has only got this pogo stick and a minifigure to show for it, of which the minifigure parts are actually so common. I own 2 of them from a Build a Mini trip way back when, like 10-15 years ago, and apparently they're still available on the Build a Mini parts today. These exact tan legs and this torso, different head and hair, and there are a few different minifigures you could get. But for a book that costs $250, I can see why Lego are going the wrong way. I think Lego are going the wrong way about the 3D printed parts in their Lego sets. The minifigure does clip down on this pogo. It's quite hard to actually get them to stand, but that might just be the way I'm doing it. There you go, the minifigures on the pogo, and you can even use the minifigure to bounce this pogo around. Oh, this is hours of fun. I've got to print a giant one of these for my Lego skeleton. Taking off the minifigure is actually a little harder, and you can see that it has started to bend and break away at the handlebars. So hopefully Lego are printing this with a bit more strength than I am. That's okay. I can print as many of these as I want. I'm really not fussed about breaking 3D printed Lego parts. And this was 2020's 3D printed Lego brick. But even this one, 5 years ago, was not the first official Lego 3D printed brick. This isn't a trick and like the keyring. They did a Bionicle keyring, I think, that came out for a certain group. Maybe that was like a designer's gift or something for the holidays, but I'm not including any of that. Instead, I'm talking about the 2019, I don't even know what it is. Like I said, I have no idea what this tool drafting table arm is. Looking at it, it looks like a bit of machinery. Maybe it's something used in some sort of machine, but it came in set 66237 if you're interested in finding this yourself, and was exclusively sold, we don't know how it was picked up yet, in 2019 in this set, the Lego System House. This was available exclusively as a gift for attendees of the Lego Inside Tour during sessions in 2019. I know what the Lego Inside Tour is. If you're interested in finding out a bit more about some of the other sets made available, shout out to Fromania Bricks. They've got their hands on quite a few of them, both new and used. And, you know, there are videos explaining the Lego Inside Tour out there. I have no idea what actually goes on the inside. And this was in Billund, Denmark, based on an actual Lego company structure, now known as the Lego Idea House. Is that different to the Lego house? Because it's all brick built now, but it does share some similar things to this. But also shout out to Rebrickable for being the only one out of Rebrickable, Brick Out, Bricklink, you name it, that had this piece registered and drawn to this set. But New Elementary have given us a close-up look. Again, I could probably design this and print this myself, but that's not the point. This is the very first 3D printed Lego elements and probably will sell for millions just because, you know, very few people have this. A lot of people on the Inside Tour give it away or lose pieces. You know, it's a 3D printed element. I'm not sure many people really care about these bricks at the minute, but this is going to be worth so much in the future. Much more than the $650 duck, much more than the 2-3 grand Lego pogo stick, by the way. So if you are looking at picking up the train and don't really mind about that 3D printed element, you've got two choices. Send it to me, nice donation to the channel, or you can put it away, sit on it, and that will be a nice investment for the future, especially for collectors and fans of 3D prints. But they've got a video here which shows us exactly how it works, and a little block of text. I've skimmed and scanned this, don't really know how that works. Oh look, it's me. But what is meant to happen is it's based off, I think it's based off it's something to do with design. I'm not really sure how this works. If someone can explain this in the comments, please do. I am intrigued to see what this is meant to represent, and the instructions do show off an alternate brick built version, which is why in trying to look through the instructions I couldn't find this piece used. And it's also worth mentioning, because it is an Inside Tour exclusive, the instructions aren't available online, at least not through lego.com. So building this, I mean, there you go, good luck building it based on this image. And the last one is interesting, they added that alternate brick built element because that would be nice for people that don't want a 3D printed part, and it seems to work the exact same as this 3D printed element. But as for why this was the very first 3D printed element, I guess we're never going to know. So then, that brings us to a very important question as to why 3D printing? What is so special about 3D printing? And I do think the big thing for Lego right now, I'm sure most of you will agree, is the cost of Lego parts. Lego is only getting cheaper to be made, so Lego are trying to do more with newer elements and making molds for the induction molds that Lego do use, which encase the ABS plastic and are a lot stronger than 3D printing. Don't worry, Lego aren't switching to pure 3D printed bricks anytime soon. It's expensive. And when Lego use these molds for, you know, like 3-4 years and then drop them, it's a lot of money to be spending, which is seen in the value of sets. We've spoken time and time again on the channel before about how every new element raises a set by like £10, $10, and that's a lot to be spending on the new sets that we're seeing every couple of months. So perhaps all new elements could be 3D printed first, and not only would that save Lego designers, you know, chopping up and recoloring actual Lego bricks, and they can print their own, as I've been doing for, honestly, I don't remember the last time I 3D printed Lego for a video, but I've been doing this for years with printers before this one. But we can also get fun little molds like this that Lego's quality control isn't as good as it was when they were just sticking to 2x2 bricks. something like this is bound to come up with so many issues that it's not worth using induction molds for it. So it makes sense why Lego are 3D printing little ducks, little trains with features like the wheel moving the mouth. I'm sure for years to come, everything else is going to be mostly brick built. However, if we can get this mechanism in bricks, if we could get, say, a 2x4 that had an axle hole in the back, that when the axle hole was turned similar to the spring launchers, we then got a little stud popping up out the front. I know people are going to run with this and just create some crazy mocks based on the same function as this tiny little duck. I'm not sure if any of you spotted it earlier, but I have been 3D printing the elements throughout the Slave 1, although I think it only showed up in one clip. And here we have 4 slopes, which if you've built the UCS Slave 1, you'll know it's a lovely set. And actually there were no improvements we made to that set. Come to think of it, that's one of the only Lego sets we've built recently and not been able to improve. Even the ATST, I've snuck a few improvements in there. Wow, I think the UCS Slave 1 might be my favourite Lego set. But it's not to say it can't be improved through the use of 3D printing. Here we have 4 elements. Let's replace this plate before I have to... Wow, this one's held on there real tight. This is going to be a pain to remove. But like I said, we'll get into the pattern in just a minute, because the pattern does mean we're unable to 3D print parts on Lego elements. And these aren't parts that are meant to be removed. You saw with the duck how easily we popped off the head. That's not what Lego are patenting. That is not the point of their pattern. The point is instead to mold a element and 3D print the other side to stop a load of deformities, I guess, and rarer elements that we seem to have. I mean, Lego Flickfire missiles, that's something I've never seen the element go badly, and that is dual molded with, that's dual molded light and dark grey, and dual molded legs as well is something that are molded a lot of the times. And I'm not sure if Lego would be 3D printing boots or the top half. If they 3D print boots, I think they'd probably be more likely at cracking, so they'd probably be 3D printing the top half of minifigure legs. I mean, there's only so many colours that boots come in, at least when Lego's concerned. Usually black, brown, maybe the odd like white for a cast or something. This is very hard to do. If in doubt, always keep a pair of tweezers handy. But if Lego were to start 3D printing the legs on top of boots, could we get more colours, and could we finally have every single Jedi minifigure, every single Imperial even, with dual molded legs, and even niche characters that might only come in one colour? Induction molding seems to be a harder process to change colour than a 3D printer that not only can be done by hand, but most 3D printers that Lego are buying, they're not creating their own 3D printers. Maybe they are, but if they are buying 3D printers, there are 3D printers that are set up to change colours based on script that you can provide. So, you know, 12 hours a day, they're printing with light grey, and the other 12 is dark grey. Makes it a lot easier for Lego. And that is, if I don't drop them again, where these bricks come in very handy for the Slave 1. But before I show them off, let's bring the Slave 1 over. Easy does it. Here is potentially my favourite Lego Star Wars set. Honestly, favourite Lego set of all time. All right, we're going to have to change the camera angle here. Ignore all of that in the background. In fact, we've ripped a massive hole in the middle of that curtain. You can see straight through. But here we have the UCS Slave 1. There we go. I think that's the best angle I'm going to get. And on the side, there's usually 2 really long slopes. These are, what, 1x8 slopes that I ended up stealing for my V19. They're along the front. Don't worry, I've preserved the UCS stickers, but it provided me with the perfect opportunity for upgrading this model using 3D printing, because on one side of these bricks I've had to turn down the light that I use because the exposure is just blurring white, yellow, and like the entirety of this front section of the Slave One. You can see one side is yellow, one side is white, and there is a very thin strip meant to represent the same thin strip that we see on the stickers of the Slave One. Some of these stickers can be hidden, especially, I can't even remember where the stickers are. Oh, just down at the bottom here. This brick right there is a green brick with a blue sticker on. We put it right near the edge, ignoring Lego's instructions. Same with the cockpit as well. Stickers right on the edge, which I'm fine with because it means we get to use those if I ever do break down this model, which I bloody hope I don't. Future me, stop it, put it back on the shelf. If I ever do break down the model though, it's Lego. It is meant to be played with that way. It means I can use the pieces in a way that doesn't just conform to the standards of the Slave One. So personally, I'm starting to become a fan of stickers, especially with the high quality of printing that Lego are now doing. But it also means that for something like this Slave One, these 3D printed elements, which Lego would do a injection mold in white of, perhaps, there's two ways they can do this. Perhaps they could do just the Lego brick with a 3D printed decal on top, as opposed to like pad printing or something, because it's so much cheaper than pad printing. I know there's a lot of smaller companies that are doing it for fairly reasonable prices, but it is really expensive to be doing it, especially for a set that's only going to be made for 2, maybe even 6 months. We've seen that with Star Wars sets recently. Or they could do what I did and mold half of the brick in white and then continue printing in an alternate color. And to get these on might be a bit trickier on a UCS set. I'm used to putting this on like step 5. Actually, it wasn't that hard. I thought that was going to take a lot longer than it did. And we've even got the clip bit up here, which we can pull off. It's my preferred way. Oh, that's a topic that I want to cover in a video recently. It seems that, oh, I thought a plate cracked. It was just fluff. Never mind, false alarm. You can kind of see based on the already existing, all right, let's sit down these plates firmly. You can kind of see based on the sticker side on the other side that this just looks a bit more cleaner rather than having the sticker, which is a very thin strip. This goes round the edge and stops that white gap that does appear on the brick, which I'm not at all a fan of. I don't like the fact that Lego gets stickers that don't cover the entire top. So maybe this is the future of Lego Star Wars UCS sets. I don't see them putting this type of technology to use in like a 4+ set, but I would happily be surprised. And with the final piece, there we have our upgraded Slave One. Again, I'm not going to count this as a real upgrade. All I've done is make the yellow line a bit more solid. And you can also see it through the windshield, through the cockpit of the Slave One. This is such a cleaner look. And I think the few stickers they have used sparingly to get the shape on the cockpit. Happy they brought back the piece from Book of Boba and didn't try to dual mold anything there. But this could also be 3D printed. And even details like the front here. What 3D printing would allow Lego to do as opposed to their pad printing that they already use is to get a bit of depth to these bricks. Rather than injection molding a brand new piece, Lego could take that 1x3 green element and, similar like they do the UV printing in stores that we've seen, layer plastic on top that should just stick to the Lego. I haven't given that a go. I guess with the pattern I wouldn't be able to. Personal use, maybe I'll give that a go and let you know how it goes. But it's really interesting to see Lego moving on to potentially what we've been doing for the last couple of years. And Lego have been doing it, admittedly, for this is their 6th year now. So I think it's about time we actually take a look at that pattern. So what we have here is the official Lego pattern, which all patterns can be found, well, at least once they're passed, can be found publicly on Google, which is really nice because it gives us a sneak peek at some of the other elements like the smart brick that we've already looked at. And honestly, this is just a bunch of letters and numbers. I think this shows where in the world it is available, and gives it some like official numbers. This was passed, by the way, the 1st of July. Let's get a close up on that. The 1st of July 2013, which is when they put in for this patent. And actually, no, that's when it was filed. It looks like they put in for it July 2012. This has been going on for a long time, since the Disney acquisition of Star Wars. That just goes to show how long Lego have been working on this 3D printed pattern. And what this is for is, okay, a lot of words here. I'm not going to read all of this. The present invention relates to a method for the manufacture of injection molding, for example, with a second component made by a process built layer by layer, such as 3D printing. So it's not even exclusive just to Lego bricks. I think they'd have to narrow it down, because a load of companies with the UV printer that came out recently, the at-home one, the personal one, with that coming out, a lot of companies tried to patent UV printing on an item. And I think this is in the same lane of that, of, you know, it's a very, very niche patent. You can't stop people connecting 3D printed elements and injection molds, but what you can do is reduce the type of connection. So this is for specifically a injection molded element, such as any sort of Lego brick, with a 3D printed element on top, a separate piece that is then connected to the injection mold and cannot be removed, or isn't meant to without breaking it or brute force. And specifically, I guess this is in the realm of toys and Lego bricks. So any 3D printed element that cannot be removed from a Lego brick, hence the modifications that could be made to the Slave 1, for instance, and other collector's sets. For example, 3D printed a part of the product, which the component may be. Yep, the more I read this, the less I actually understand. So if someone could explain this in like 15 words or less in the comments, thank you. I think we all would appreciate that. But this seems to be specifically in the Lego space for future 3D printed bricks, which Lego have to have been working on. For them to have passed this pattern, that costs enough for them to want to do something like this. And we're finally seeing quite a few of these 3D printed elements. There's what, like 4 of them now in sets as of the last 6 years. But with the train coming out this year, I think that's a big step, and we could potentially see a lot more of these in the future. Here we go. So the bottom is a 2x10 plate, a 2x10 plate with, you know, maybe bricks underneath. We'll assume this is just a 2x10 plate for the purpose, because this brick doesn't currently exist. And on top, there is a very specific shape, which injection molding would just cost too much to do for one set alone. But 3D printing is more affordable, and maybe they'll glue them. Maybe they'll glue them like the keychains. Not the keychains, the magnets. Like the magnets back in the day when they realized we were pulling minifigures off it. Maybe Lego would use a strong adhesive, or even weld the two together. And here is, that looks like a 1x2 as well. So there's a few different parts to this. I mean, Lego know what they've got planned with this. We can only wait and find out. But I think this is really interesting and could completely change the future of Lego sets, and fingers crossed, more importantly, the prices. I don't know what this is. It could be like a snowplow for a train. And whilst we're on the topic of trains, Lego have also recently switched out the metal bars. I don't know when they've done this. This was quite a few years ago, but I always remember as a kid, the trains had the metal spikes going between the wheels. They're now plastic as well. So we could get a function like these ducks, like the little blue train that comes in this set, with actual Lego train wheels, and that can apply to so much. The smoke moving out of trains, perhaps we get a... They could even add a light brick into the main train by the fuel. For steam trains, this is. The steam bouncing, and then the light brick could light up the fire every, you know, as you're pushing it along, every couple of while. And that could then pair with a motor in another carriage that could be pushing the train along automatically. The possibilities are truly endless. Let me know what you think down in the comments. I'm really excited for this, and I hope that, unlike most other things, Star Wars doesn't miss out on this. It's been so long since Star Wars had light bricks, or I think we only have that one motor set with a giant Gonk, R2 and the other droid. So I'd love to see more of this in the new year. Of course, we've also got Lego's new Smart Brick. Check that out on screen now. Until next time, may the bricks be with you always.